Welcome to another edition of Channel Weird. I'm Clyde Lewis. And we have a very special guest with us today, and one that is going to be, I believe, an eye-opener to a lot of people, because it's a very, very special guest we have. Nancy Lumbis is with us today. And the reason why Nancy is so special is because she has a history, a very, very interesting history, a history that probably not very many people know about. There's a picture that is familiar with people who have over time investigated MKULTRA, which is the secret program that the CIA was involved with in the 50s and 60s, and arguably still to this day they're conducting experiments on people, mind control experiments on people. And so that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about just what exactly is going on. And of course, there's a lot of news stories lately about an experimental direct energy weapon that has been used on our soldiers in Syria, and now they're reporting that this experimental weapon has been used on certain staff at the White House. And so, we reported this years ago. Many people were saying, come on, it's not, it's just outrageous. They have schizophrenia. This was the Cuban diplomat story a while ago. And then they were suffering from something called white brain, which is sort of a concussion type of effect. And I figured we go right to the source. We go to Nancy. Nancy, welcome to Ground Zero. Or actually, welcome to Channel Weird. I got to get used to it. It's still early for me. I woke up late today. So I guess today traffic's crazy. Everything's crazy today.
Everything is crazy. No worries. Thank you for having me, Clyde.
You bet. So behind you, and we're going to show the cut, is a picture of MKUltra girl, and that is you.
Yes, that is me.
And
yes.
Okay, so tell us about this picture. I mean, it's a very impactful photo. It's been around for a long time. Tell us about what is going on in that photo.
Well, I believe this was 1965, and I had been diagnosed with tonsillitis. So my mom thought I was going to have my tonsils taken out that day. She took me to the hospital. Mm-hmm. And there's another photo without the chin strap. Now, the chin strap was there to hold ice in my mouth. Mm-hmm. My mom did think that the ice was there to soothe the swelling for the tonsils, which I'm sure did help, but they had also done a brain implant. And when they do an implant, they have to remove part of your brain. So to, hide this under the radar, there's a lot of things that have to take place. So my mom came in to visit me after the surgery, and I wasn't able to speak because of the chin strap, which was important because at that moment my speech wasn't up to par because of the brain removal and the implant. And so this picture basically was done under the auspices of my tonsils being removed.
But they were doing other things.
They were doing other things, and it's so important to know that when they're doing this, they have to keep track of everybody in your family, because they have to know where everybody is, what they're doing, because they have to know their timeline. They keep people busy. I know that with the case of Sirhan, when after Sirhan was arrested, they bought the house directly behind Sirhan's.
Sirhan from the Robert Kennedy assassination.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that was not only did Sirhan and I have the same hypnotist, because these implants are combined with hypnosis. And for me, the hypnosis started at age 3.
So they tried to create an alter in you?
Well, they do create alters in you. They give you different names, and each one of those alters is set to do a different chore.
Right.
Has a different purpose.
Did they give you triggers that you remember that they triggered you in order to bring those alters forward?
I do remember some of them, but how it works, it's not just one trigger, it's a series of triggers. And so it might be somebody riding a red bike, and then you'll see somebody walking a German Shepherd, or somebody in a blue jacket holding a feather. But it has to be it's a series. It's designed in a way that you won't be triggered just by seeing a red bike going by.
It's not like in the Manchurian Candidate where they tell him to play a red queen card.
Right. Now, the queen card was very important. It was used in one of my triggers, but it was combined with the eight of hearts, the queen of hearts, and the eight of hearts. So there's a couple little things missing from that. But
did you get phone calls that would trigger things as well? Or?
I did get phone calls, and one of those triggers, that was one of the only, I guess I call it a chore, because it's really designed to make you perform an act that they have programmed you to do.
Now, okay, so they triggered you, or they made you perform certain acts. What were some of those acts that you performed, all under the influence of the MKUltra alters?
Well, a lot of it is fuzzy because your memory doesn't come back right away. So putting pieces together is maybe a lifetime thing. So some of it I remember well. A lot of it I don't. But to answer the phone, I know Candy Jones, her husband, had said that she would get a phone call and she would answer the phone.
That's Long John Nebel, by the way. Long John Nebel was Candy Jones's husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she would get that phone call and disappear. Well, for me, that trigger was somebody tossing their keys up in the air and catching them and slamming them down on the counter. And that was the trigger to put the phone next to you when you went to sleep. And that phone call would come in very late at night. So you would be woken. But there's also it's almost like a trance state that signal puts you in. So even though you're asleep, you're subconsciously aware of this phone call.
So you don't remember half of what they made you do?
I don't remember half of it. I do remember two very specific things. Mostly, just like the story of Kathy O'Brien, a lot of it is very sexually related, and it's very...
So they used you as a cutout.
You were cut out. You were like a spare.
Right. So you were basically one of those, like it's been said that there are a number of people that were involved, a lot of women or girls that were involved with the CIA that became cutouts so they could get information, pillow talk, if you will, from other informants.
Right.
Wow. And most of the time you were unaware that you were doing this.
Unaware.
But then
unaware.
They could slap the keys down or do whatever to get the information out of you, and then bam, you're back to being who you are. You don't have no idea that you gathered this information, and they go back to another altar. Wow.
And what's interesting about Kathy O'Brien's story is they estimate that around the age of 35 is when you start remembering, which is around the time I started remembering little pieces.
Was it traumatic for you?
It was very traumatic as I started uncovering the truth. That's when it became extremely traumatic, because it's really hard to understand that humans could do this to another human being.
I know there's actually, they're going to make another movie about Chuck Barris, who made this statement that he was a CIA assassin. He was a game show writer, game show host type guy, and then he would be an assassin for the CIA, and they didn't believe his story. But they're going to make another movie about it, and he was actually saying, too, that what would happen is that he'd get a phone call. Phone call would say, you need to remove this person, and so he'd go out with his altar, and he would kill someone. He would assassinate someone.
Right.
And that's how it worked. They'd round up some, unsuspecting person. They'd turn them into an altar. They put an altar in them. They snap their fingers, and this guy becomes an assassin. Or they snap their fingers, and like in your case, and you become a cutout, where you're going in and you're getting pillow talk from other agents, and then you're coming back not knowing that that's what you were doing.
Right.
That's insidious.
Right.
And you have no way of going after them.
Well, in my case, I'm a little bit luckier, only in the sense that my documents were declassified to a point.
Right.
But they have pictures of numerous people that they've done this 2000s.
So that picture, the picture of MKUltra girl,
Yes.
You went in for tonsillitis or tonsil problem, and then, why did they target you to put an implant in your head? What was your association that gave them this ability to do so. I mean, you're obviously you have a background, right?
Right, and I believe that the background started with my father. And my father was an army man. He was very sought after. He was an amazing surveillance technician.
Was he a spook?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe he was.
CIA.
Yes,
Okay.
he was with the CIA.
Because that's how it all begins, right? You have families. It's in the family, and so you have,
That's the key.
you have CIA guys or CIA agents that, or they work for the government in some secret way, and then they say, well, I have a gifted daughter or a gifted son, and they put them in a program, and then the program ends up with them becoming like in Stranger Things. You become 11 literally, and then you go out and you do these deeds. It was during the Cold War. They went out and they did these deeds, spying on Russians or getting information about communism and all that. I mean, especially back in the 60s and 70s when this was
Right.
certainly a worry about CIA and J. Edgar Hoover.
Right. And this comes back to the surveillance on your family at all costs, at all points, at all times. Because when you have a family member that's already involved, it's like I was saying with Sirhan's brother, they moved into the house behind Sirhan's because they had to keep an eye on the family to make sure, to know what they're finding out, to know what they're doing, to know their next step when they're running an investigation like that and trying to pin or frame somebody with that,
So you have fall
that
guys,
is that yes,
fall guys and
high-profile.
patsies and whatever. But see, that's the thing, is that if it's back to cognitive liberty. There's something that a lot of people don't realize, is that in the future we have to protect our cognitive liberty because of the fact that we have now these weapons
Right.
that they're revealing that can give you what they call the immaculate concussion.
Right.
These weapons can influence people to, grab a high-powered weapon and go into a school and start shooting, or into a theater and start shooting. Many of these recent, the Boulder shooter said that he was getting harassing phone calls at night, keeping him up. He couldn't sleep, and people thought he was crazy. And then there was Noah Green, the guy that basically rammed his car at the Capitol, saying, I'm hearing voices. They're telling me to do this. I can't shake the voices. What's going on here? And people go, obviously, he was crazy. But the question is, if they're showing schizophreniform types of activity or behavior, is it because of the mind manipulation, or were they crazy to begin with?
Well, I don't know each individual story, so I can't comment on that. But I can tell you that I've had that issue with the energy weapons, and for me, it's always in my left ear. It's very, very intense. It almost feels like your eardrum just wants to explode.
Right.
But it also does something to your nervous system. There's a nervousness, a shakiness that comes over you within your body that is hard to shake. For me, it took days to shake, but the pain in the ear doesn't go away easily. And in my left ear, my hearing is just about shot. I really don't hear that well anymore.
Right.
But it is a form of control, and when they've done this to you, you really kind of understand what that means, that this is, hey, look at what we can do to you. This.
See, I've heard that it's an extremely low frequency, and
There's different forms.
So
They
with
have
you,
different
since you had the implant, it was a lot easier probably for them to use, whether it be voice to skull technology or some other technology,
Right.
to trigger that implant to basically put you in a trance.
Right. Well, the implants themselves. Now, this implant, just to mention, this was actually done by the Navy. So they were doing this. The military was doing this under the auspices of the CIA. But there's a remote control that goes with it.
Okay.
So the remote control itself can turn you off at the cortex, and that's what puts you in a trance state. And I've heard a lot of people who claim they've been abducted, where they say, my eyes were open, but I couldn't move.
Right.
And that is actually this device. It puts you in a trance to where you can see, but you can't talk.
I want you to hold that thought, because I have a question. I know if I get into this question, and we got to go to break, we're going to get into this question, you're going to talk, and I just want to hear. It has to do with abduction now that you brought it up. I want to hear
Right.
something from you about that and see what your thoughts are on this. Amazing show today, right here on Channel Weird. We have Nancy Lumbis with us, and we'll be back with more. Keep it right here.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. That's groundzeromerch.com.
Following a disaster, your home emergency kit will be invaluable. Building a kit doesn't take long, and you'll be glad you did when disaster strikes. Here's a list of items to include: a first aid kit, battery-powered or hand crank radio, flashlight, extra batteries, an emergency whistle, cell phone with charger, cash and small bills, a local map with your family meeting place identified, food and water to last 2 weeks, garbage bags, dust masks, and seasonal clothing and footwear. Add prescription medications or any other important items unique to your family's needs. Once you've created your kit, check food expiry dates once a year and update seasonal clothing for growing children. If you have pets, make sure you have everything your furry friends need in an easy-to-carry grab-and-go bag. To learn more about preparing an emergency kit, visit mil.wa.gov/preparedness and get 2 weeks ready.
Be sure to get your low-cost 2-week supply of food with a miraculous 25-year shelf life by going to preparewithgroundzero.com.
Hey guys, this is Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero. In order to counter the growing suppression and censorship of information, we've created our own private digital playground called Aftermath.media. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring a social media platform, videos, audio clips, archive shows, and research groups. There are also documents and a news aggregator, all for $10 a month. If you sign up for a yearly subscription this March, it's only $79. So go to Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
Hi, I'm Stephen Briggs from the Surfer Music app. Surfer links thousands of stations displaying song titles and artists organized by genre. It's easy to find your favorites. You can join our Kickstarter campaign. Help us build 5 new features for the Surfer Music app. Find out more, go to Kickstarter.com and search for Surfer Music, S-U-R-F-R. For a direct link, go to surfer.fm and click the Kickstarter banner. That's SURFR.fm.
Nancy Lumbis with us tonight on where am I? Channel Weird. Keep screwing that up today. You know what it is? It's lack of coffee, I think. I mean, I have some, but it's like it's lack of coffee today. It's just one of those days. You and I both were talking about
I agree.
How there's some sort of cloud over everybody today. It's they shut down the city and everything's kind of weird. Okay, so we were talking about these weapons, these energy weapons. We were talking about the Navy who basically, you know, your MKULTRA girl, that well-known picture of the MKULTRA girl, and they put an implant in you, and it was the Navy doing it under the auspices of the CIA.
Right.
And you started getting into the abduction phenomenon. You're seeing people being abducted and being in a trance. And so I wanted to ask you, Do you believe, because there is this I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory or a theory, that when you look at something like maybe the Montauk experiments, or you look at what was going on at maybe the Presidio, or all these other places where young people like you were being manipulated, there are some people that say that they believe the abduction phenomenon, the alien abduction phenomenon, is literally the MKUltra program, but it's called MILABs or MILLabs, where the military and aliens and some extraterrestrial force is involved. What are your thoughts on the MILABs?
Well, for me, I've never seen an alien, so it's very hard for me to reconcile that with what I've gone through. I'm not minimizing it for anybody who has, seen that, but I do know that what I've learned, especially through research, is that the unconscious mind cannot determine reality from non-reality. So if you are in this trance state, or if you have an implant where they have actually turned you off at the cortex, because they come with remote controls, if they have done this to you, they can show you a screen of aliens. They can tell you what you're seeing. You really don't have any way of separating that reality from non-reality.
I'm glad you're bringing this up, because there have been many postmodernists. Jean Baudrillard is one of them that I read a while ago. He was the one that wrote the book about simulacrum. And he was saying the same thing you are. Says the unconscious mind has a hard time differentiating, or does not differentiate between what is reality and what isn't reality. So if you go see Jurassic Park on the screen, you're actually seeing the dinosaurs. You know that they're CGI,
right?
But your unconscious does not. When they had the alien autopsy on TV and they broadcast it on Fox News or Fox TV, even though they said that the alien was a dummy and it wasn't real, your unconscious mind witnessed the autopsy and butchering of an alien being on TV.
Right.
And you'll always have that in your unconscious mind if you watched it. So no matter how, if you're fooled or what have you, you still had that experience.
Right. And this is well documented. This is something that they studied so deeply and well documented, that the conscious mind and the unconscious mind could not tell the difference between what it's seeing, whether it was real or non-real. And so for me, that phenomena of abduction comes with other aspects. Most people believe it has something to do with their bloodline, which I believe it does too, because Rh negative people are the ones that are have the most stories of abductions. I'm Rh negative, but I've been the thing to remember about the CIA and these programs is they multi-purpose.
Right.
You're not brought in for one thing only.
Mm-hmm.
There's many reasons and many, many experiments that they have brought you in for. So you're not randomly chosen. They already know who you are. They know who your parents are. They know your history, your ancestry, your blood type, and your bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
And this is important. I don't know how many of these folks that claim to be abducted actually have B-type blood, but I know a great many of them are Rh negative. And that in itself is another story, but highly sought after by the National Institution of Health. The NIH has done numerous studies, and they've been involved with many of these CIA studies. They were one of the main supporters for a lot of these experiments.
So it could be a mix.
It's a mix of many different experiments.
Yeah, I would say that I'm sure there's a list that we probably haven't even thought of that maybe we're all participating in.
Yes, and that's just it. We really don't know, and with the newer nanobots, it's anybody's guess as to how many people have gone over this or under this.
Right.
But the B blood is important because, as we know with Operation Paperclip, they brought so many people over that were already doing many of these experiments. But Mengele,
Mm-hmm.
Mengele himself was studying the B-type blood because they knew it was a highly prophetic or psychic, whatever word you want to use, bloodline or blood type. So there was a great interest in that. And when you think about it, the CIA project was very much based on psychic ability or seeing into the future and
First Earth
remote
Battalion.
viewing and all of that.
Project Stargate, First Earth Battalion, all those groups that were involved.
And even though they say that it ended back then, we know it didn't, just through Kathy O'Brien, that even in the mid 90s.
What about Heaven's Gate?
They were still doing it. And Heaven's Gate, I don't know a whole lot about that or how he was involved. But
he was at Berkeley, and they were basically trying to cure him of homosexuality.
Yeah.
And he went in. Heaven's Gate was one of my. I had a lot of interest at the time in Heaven's Gate. I studied a lot about what happened, why. They were working on projects for the government. They were working on software for, get a load of this, war game scenarios for aliens. Seriously, alien war game scenarios. They were creating programs for the government at the time.
Right.
And I'm sure that somehow Marshall Applewhite was involved with some sort of an MKUltra program at Berkeley.
Well, and you look at Jim Jones, and that was there's little doubt with all of the evidence that that CIA wasn't involved in that. They owned the property that everything happened on. That was the whole basis for the investigation that came out.
Yeah, just remember what Jim Jones, the experiment was to get people to be so paranoid that they were going to die or they were going to be under attack that they would basically do anything to avoid dying, and what they did is they drank the Kool-Aid and they ended up dying anyway. But the whole idea is that if you can get people frightened enough, they'll do anything. They'll take a drug, they'll take a vaccine, they'll drink Kool-Aid, they'll do whatever. And look at where we are now.
And it begs the question why, when they've already had so much evidence and so many studies and know that this is a possibility, that it still takes place.
Well, the herd mentality is very, very powerful. I mean, you get one person involved, and what? They don't care. Well, this one person's crazy. They're just, they're hearing voices. It's nuts. But you get a whole group involved that are hearing voices.
Right.
You get a whole group involved that are being told that they're going to die. You get a whole group involved that way, and you get them terrified. They'll accept anything you give them. I mean, 9/11 was a perfect example of this. After 9/11, everybody was terrified. And now with the COVID-19, everybody's terrified. So, I mean, they know how to traumatize a group of people when they really want to.
They do. Yes, I have to agree.
And they will hold, I mean, it's obvious they're going to hold whatever they can over you, like a Damocles sword, to get you to do their bidding. And I remember, like I said a while ago, Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum said one of the I guess they say the silver lining of COVID-19 was how easy it was to convince people to give themselves self-imposed prison sentence by staying in their homes. Right. And so this is a mass psyop in a lot of ways, even though you're looking at COVID being very real. It's a very real disease, but the psyop is telling people it's going to kill you. The psyop is that if you go out without a mask, you're murdering people. The psyop is do as we say, or we're going to turn this car around and you're not going to get anything.
Well, in the 50s and 60s, it was very effective because we really trusted our government. We trusted our military. We trusted the people that were in charge, the people that were supposed to protect us. And so there was I believe personally that one of the reasons this whole MKUltra project was so effective was because there's a deep-seated need or want for most of us to be helpful, to be engaged with our government. And I think with people like Oswald, there was, being a military person, he really had that patriotic duty bred into him. And so when you, especially under hypnosis in the subconscious mind, if you present these things to somebody, a project or a job that you want them to do, they're willing with great happiness to do it because they want to be that hero, they want to be that patriot. And so there's not much questioning because it is coming from somebody that you trust. So it's just a lot like this COVID. We're trusting them to be taking care of us or looking out for our best interests. But when we really do some digging, we find out that the NIH was funding a lot of these projects in China. And if we go back to the 50s and 60s, we can see how they were actually trading viruses with Russia and China and all these other countries. So this is not anything new.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if you go back and you look at the dark history, like you said, you brought up Project Paperclip or Operation Paperclip, bringing the German scientists over, and they knew everything about, using psilocybin and LSD and all this stuff to get people to do their bidding. We're going to take a break right now. Nancy Lumbis is with us today on Channel Weird, and it's such an informative show, an amazing guest. She's the MKULTRA girl, and we'll be back with more. Don't go away.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. That's groundzeromerch.com.
Following a disaster, your home emergency kit will be invaluable. Building a kit doesn't take long, and you'll be glad you did when disaster strikes. Here's a list of items to include: a first aid kit, battery-powered or hand crank radio, flashlight, extra batteries, an emergency whistle, cell phone with charger, cash and small bills, a local map with your family meeting place identified, food and water to last 2 weeks, garbage bags, dust masks, and seasonal clothing and footwear. Add prescription medications or any other important items unique to your family's needs. Once you've created your kit, check food expiry dates once a year and update seasonal clothing for growing children. If you have pets, make sure you have everything your furry friends need in an easy-to-carry grab-and-go bag. To learn more about preparing an emergency kit, visit mil.wa.gov/preparedness and get 2 weeks ready.
Be sure to get your low-cost 2-week supply of food with a miraculous 25-year shelf life by going to preparewithgroundzero.com.
Hey guys, this is Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero. In order to counter the growing suppression and censorship of information, we've created our own private digital playground called Aftermath.media. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring a social media platform, videos, audio clips, archive shows, and research groups. There are also documents and a news aggregator, all for $10 a month. If you sign up for a yearly subscription this March, it's only $79. So go to Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Okay, we're going to get this right. You're watching Channel Weird. Got that right? Nancy Lumbis is my guest, the MKULTRA girl. Okay, so, gosh, there's so many things, like you said. If we had hours, you and I could just talk all day
There's
about
so much
this.
to cover, yes.
So let's go back to basics. Let's go back to 1950s. Let's go back to Dr. Frank Olson, who was an agent for the CIA, Operation Midnight Climax, taken into a room, given LSD with a bunch of hookers, and he basically freaked out, jumped out a window, they say.
Right.
But he was pushed, probably killed. They tried to settle with the family. You had people like, the same, Dick Cheney and all those guys saying, you either take your settlement or shut up or whatever, not muscling these people. What they were doing with these agents, they were creating assassins, weren't they?
With many of them, yes. Like I was saying, they multi-purpose these projects. So if somebody's involved with your hypnosis, they might also be a target of hypnosis themselves and being ruled or controlled by somebody else that is controlling, it's
So
control of you by somebody
Right.
that's being controlled also.
So you're talking about Lee Harvey Oswald. Was he a controlled patsy?
I believe he very much was. Well, Oswald was a Marine, so there's still a lot of open questions about why he was with the Navy in Russia, or with the Navy at all with the U-2 program. But knowing that the Navy did this operation on me makes me wonder if he didn't have the same implant. And I say that because Oswald's wife, Marina, had his body exhumed, and they brought the body back without a head, and it was 2 years before they returned Oswald's head. And the undertaker said that wasn't his head at all. He had worked on the body and knew it immediately when he saw the body, when he saw the head, that was not Oswald's head. And it also begs the question, why would you keep it 2 years? But I do believe that he had some kind of an implant going on. And one of the reasons is George Joannides. George Joannides was a person that was there at the hospital when I was coming out of all of this surgery, and they were, trying to get my brain working back to normal to be able to recognize my mom, to recognize my dad, my brother, my family, and just the normalcy that they would want to see after a surgery for tonsils. So I do believe that there was something going on with Oswald because of George Joannides. So George Joannides was not only one of the people safeguarding the CIA's part in the investigations, he was also at Bobby's assassination. He was in the Ambassador Hotel. He was pictured, filmed there, and he was part of JM Wave. But Shane Sullivan did a great documentary, RFK Must Die, because he interviewed several CIA agents that worked at JM Wave, and many of them recognized Joannides but didn't know what he did. But Joannides was also in charge of the Fair Play for Cuba, which Oswald was very much involved in. So it does beg the question why he would be not only at the Ambassador Hotel, but also played a role in the Fair Play for Cuba Act.
Right.
When I saw Joannides, I remembered his face when I saw the documentary. I didn't have a name for it, but I remember him in a white coat. So it's hard for me to imagine that Oswald was not implanted.
So was he implanted to be at the depository, not to shoot? Because we do know that we had a Cuban connection, and then we had, of course, the mob connection. In fact, I'm watching this TV show called The Godfather of Harlem, and they just got over the Kennedy assassination, and all these guys are together, these mob bosses are together. They said, who in the mob took out JFK? Because both he and Bobby said that they were going to take out these mobs and go after the unions and go after all these other people. And so everybody toasted the death of JFK because that way they can stay in business with their drug operations. And we do know of the connection between the CIA, LSD, heroin, all this stuff going into the cities and basically getting people hooked on it, especially the black community.
Yes, very sad.
Yeah.
Well, There's definitely a huge connection with the Mafia and the CIA, and we've, over the years and over the decades, we've tried to separate them as if they're two separate identities. But I don't believe that that was really the case back in the 50s and 60s. A lot of the mobsters at that time were in the military in one form or another. They had connections to the government, but they were also being used by the CIA. There was a lot of underhanded, dirty work, like you say, just with the drugs. Take that one example. Who else would they get to do this work for them?
Exactly.
So there was an incredible tie between the two and the CIA, because there was a strictness at that time too, that the CIA was not allowed to do work within the USA, and so that's where they would turn.
So they did a lot of work overseas, but then they came back and they became the group of individuals that had no responsibility to Congress, no responsibility to anyone except themselves. They were kind of like the unit at the time. They were the crime unit for the country to commit acts of whatever without any restraint or any kind of sanctioning. And it was just odd how all this went down, and that's why when you look back, and I've interviewed a few people, you have the Cuban the Cuban squad that apparently Nixon was involved with. You have the mob, Sam Giancana. You have Jack Ruby, who ran the strip club.
And there's a very famous picture of Jack Ruby and Nixon.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, I mean, Ruby's role was just kind of like this mystery. I mean, he was dying anyway, but was he also programmed with an altar, or did he just out of pure malice just went after Lee Harvey Oswald and shot him?
Well, I don't, that I can't answer if he was actually programmed to. I believe he was in the know. That goes back to that sense of patriotic duty, of not really questioning and just being told that this is what we need to do. This is for the betterment of our country, the betterment of humanity, or whatever the narrative is at that time.
Do you think Dulles was the mastermind in Kennedy's assassination?
I think that Dulles knew. I don't know that he was the mastermind, but I think Angleton would have been more of somebody. And David, there's a couple people that his last name has escaped me right now, but there's a few people. But I do think Dulles was aware.
Mm-hmm. Because Dulles was fired by Kennedy.
Yes.
And isn't it interesting that Dulles, fired by Kennedy, but he was the one that headed up the investigation into Kennedy's assassination, which I thought was just...
Absolutely.
It didn't make any sense.
All of the people that were involved were somehow involved with the investigation, and that was strictly to keep the MKUltra part as secretive as possible. They had to have people in there who knew what to look for to suppress it.
Mm-hmm. And it was interesting how you look at the Warren Commission and who was all involved with the Warren Commission, and then it's funny how we see Kennedy, then Johnson, and then we have Nixon, and then we have Ford, who was part of the Warren Commission. All these guys kept it within the inner circle for a few years so that no one was to know who was involved with the Kennedy assassination. And then, of course, Bobby gets killed, and you were talking about Sirhan Sirhan. Now, do you believe that Sirhan was mind-controlled, and did he pull the trigger, or was there other people involved with the Kennedy?
Well, I absolutely believe that Sirhan was mind-controlled, because there was a man by the name of Gudarzian. His name was Khabar Khan Gudarzian, and he was a known CIA operative. He had gotten involved with the Kennedy campaign, Bobby Kennedy's campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was being hypnotized by Gudarzian. He had a daughter who, by the way, fits perfectly with the girl in the polka dot dress. She had the Anglo nose, she had very lily white skin, dark wiry hair, very voluptuous built. I mean, everything and every description given of her would fit Gudarzian's daughter. And they were doing this hypnosis together, almost like a family team. And I believe this is how they've been able to keep this so secretive and under the radar for so long, as far as bringing people to justice.
Right.
Because if you're doing something illegal, your daughter's doing something, neither one of you are going to give up the other person. I mean, you are a family unit. And you're getting paid.
Keep it within the circle.
Keep it within the circle, and you hand
and
it
eliminate
down.
those who want to talk, because we had a lot of people involved with Kennedy that was eliminated later, or they were suicided, as we say.
Right.
Nancy Lumbis is with us tonight on Channel Weird, and we're going to be back with more and information on how you can find out more, get documents, and find out more about what we're talking about tonight. Very real and very, very dark secrets of the CIA, the MKUltra program, and beyond. We'll be back.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Hi, I'm Stephen Briggs from the Surfer Music app. Surfer links thousands of stations displaying song titles and artists organized by genre. It's easy to find your favorites. You can join our Kickstarter campaign. Help us build 5 new features for the Surfer Music app. Find out more, go to Kickstarter.com and search for Surfer Music, S-U-R-F-R. For a direct link, go to surfer.fm and click the Kickstarter banner. That's SURFR.fm.
Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. That's groundzeromerch.com.
Following a disaster, your home emergency kit will be invaluable. Building a kit doesn't take long, and you'll be glad you did when disaster strikes. Here's a list of items to include: a first aid kit, battery-powered or hand crank radio, flashlight, extra batteries, an emergency whistle, cell phone with charger, cash and small bills, a local map with your family meeting place identified, food and water to last 2 weeks, garbage bags, dust masks, and seasonal clothing and footwear. Add prescription medications or any other important items unique to your family's needs. Once you've created your kit, check food expiry dates once a year and update seasonal clothing for growing children. If you have pets, make sure you have everything your furry friends need in an easy-to-carry grab-and-go bag. To learn more about preparing an emergency kit, visit mil.wa.gov/preparedness and get 2 weeks ready.
Be sure to get your low-cost 2-week supply of food with a miraculous 25-year shelf life by going to preparewithgroundzero.com.
Nancy Lumbis with us on Channel Weird. Such an interesting, I don't know, we're just jumping around from place to place here, and such an interesting topic and fascinating stuff. So, maryfarrell.org is a website for resources. Tell us about what is there and what we should look for with regard to your story and many of the other stories that we are dealing with here with MKUltra.
Well, it's just a great website to find almost any document that was released in regards to the assassinations. I found my father's document on Mary Farrell, which was, I'm not sure if it was meant to be redacted or if they went back at a later date and tried to redact my father's name. But it had already been released, and so even though they've crossed it out, you can see that it was there, the name that was there originally. So this document shows the connection, like we were talking earlier, about the CIA and the Mafia, and oftentimes there was no difference. They worked together hand in hand very often. So my father's document shows that he had a connection with the Mafia, but he was sent all around the world to work for the CIA, doing his surveillance. His very first document that I found on the CIA website for my father, and then, by the way, everything went blank. They had 17 pages for him, and as I went back to get more and more copies of documents, they all just vanished. But his very first one was with Howard Hunt in 51 in Poland. So, that just there shows you that connections. When he was in the U.S., as this document shows, he was working with the Mafia. When he was overseas, he was working for the CIA. But they were all interconnected. There's just no doubt about that. What's interesting about this document is this document of my father's shows a connection between himself and a person of interest named Charles Turin. And Charles Turin was an interesting character. He, too, was a military man. But he was one of the only people, one of 4 people charged for the only investigation into Johnny Roselli's death. So in one of his documents has been redacted for reasons of military reasons and to not expose the dealings that, or the works that they were doing with this other country. We don't know what that country was, or because obviously it's all redacted. But so there's definitely a military history there, and that would have to be the CIA that would have redacted that.
So obviously we know that the Cold War, I love Cold War mysteries and Cold War stories like this, because it's a part of history that, not since World War II, the Cold War has had so many crimes against humanity being committed for that, and we don't hear about these crimes, and MKUltra is one of those crimes against humanity. But of course, who's responsible? The Germans that we brought over from the Nazi era, bring them over for Project Paperclip, and they were basically doing these experiments on people, on children, and so what is the extent? I know that's, we could say that I guess the MKUltra program has diminished over the years because the Cold War no longer exists, but that would be an understatement. We still have MKUltra today, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think when Kathy O'Brien testified in 95, I believe it was, we knew it was happening then. That's almost 20 years after they said they had stopped. So it's not, why would you stop a project that has worked so well for you? With that does not make any sense. This is something that they've not only continued to do, but they've mastered. And with the new technology, it's hard to even detect anymore.
So we're having psychological warfare today. That psychological warfare, though, has moved into the media. I mean, you look at all of it. It used to be that we would speculate if the CIA was involved with reporting our stories. Now we know the CIA is involved because we have ex-CIA and other CIA operatives that are working as consultants for these mainstream news apparatus. So we have the military-industrial complex, the intelligence apparatus, and now we could very well have, with the big pharmaceutical companies, a revisit of MKUltra. But this time, every single one of us could be subjected to some nanotech or some other tech, because Julian Assange had said before he was arrested, he said that what's coming is this evil magic dust they're going to be putting in paint, they're going to be putting in your food, they're going to be putting in your vaccines. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a very heinous project. It just goes to show you that there's no end to the manipulation into humankind. These nanobots can stop your heart. They can stop you at your cortex. They can make you feel like you've gone mad. They can create anger. They can create calm. They can do just about anything, and they've gotten so good at this technology. And I think one of the problems that I see is when we talk about the industrial complex is this innate need for, money. It's really a replacement for what we learned in the Pentagon Papers, because war is becoming increasingly less popular. We don't want to be at war. And I think that we become a generation and a society that we're a little bit more in tune with what's going on and whether we should be in war.
But we don't have agreed upon enemies, so that's why we're divided, I would say.
Right. And at the end of it, this is, and we look at, when you look at the Pentagon Papers, when you look at the Vietnam War, and you look at all the people that profited and prospered from it, knowing and seeing the reaction from the public and the protests and the outcry to stop that war, I think this became a replacement for that industrial complex.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, there's this. I've heard people say this, that 9/11 brought us together because, people come together in tragedy. What brought us together was hate.
Right.
We all hated one group of people for what they did to us.
Right.
So when that group of people are eliminated, and when the Russians are kept at bay, and when the Chinese are like looming over us to give us their ideals for a government, what remains? Well, the division, the psychological operations, the MKULTRA programs, the sleepers that are basically being triggered to go in and shoot up schools and massage parlors and create that scariness. And it's always been about traumatizing the country into giving up their rights and civil liberties for that very reason. And they use a few pawns in the scheme. But it's always, does the pawn really kill the king, or is there an organized group that puts that pawn in the place to kill the king?
Yes, it's definitely an organized group, because you look at some of the video, the children's games, video games. We have CIA agents who have actually developed them, have created them and developed them, and this is to create hate. And we look at our view on Muslim nations or Middle Eastern countries. We're meant to, if you go back to when Roddenberry was going into Disney to create this, I guess in my mind, it's a brainwashing to put so much energy and effort into space. Yes, it's interesting. Yes, it's curious, and we'd all like to know more. But are we going to sacrifice Earth for space? Because we are sending billions and billions in there. And I can tell you that from my last two handlers, the one thing they had in common, besides for working for the military, the DOD, they had NASA in common. And so this gets back to that industrial complex of replacing. We have to get that money into the, it's a corporation, aerospace, NASA. They have managed to get everybody into this with the Department of Energy being at the very top.
So it goes back to the whole alien question again, right? The
well,
idea that
but
perhaps there's a synarch that's running everything, right?
Would it not be an endless question, though? Because
it's always been, right? 70 years?
If there are aliens, then we start the question all over again. Well, where did they come from? So there really is never going to be a definitive answer for any of this.
See, and I've always wanted to erase the idea that underlying everything is the alien question. The idea of everything goes back to the alien. Everything goes back to the idea that there's something out there that's running us from afar.
Right.
That our government answers to some dark force that's extraterrestrial, or it's ultra-terrestrial, or something else. Or once again, let's just get to the chase. It's Satan. It's some sort of satanic power that they adhere to, and that's why they look at people as resources rather than human beings.
Yes.
And that's a dark, very dark way of looking at human beings.
It definitely is. And you're right. That's how we're looked at now, and these programs prove that.
Yeah. What courage you've had to come forward today and tell us all this today.
I wish we had more time, because this really is so involved, and so many people are suffering from it, and that it's really nice to have an outlet to.
We need to keep an eye on those energy weapons.
And the energy weapons, really more people need to come out and speak about them.
Yeah.
And
it's in the news now. We covered it years ago, but now it's in the news. And Now the White House is baffled. Everybody's baffled. So
Right. And I think to get an honest investigation is truly the problem with all of these issues that we're talking
we'll
about.
keep sounding the alarm. Keep sounding the alarm. Keep talking. Nancy, thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And that's Channel Weird for today. Thank you so much. Spread the word about the show. We do this for you. So keep joining us every Saturday for Channel Weird. Thank you, guys.